What's up everyone, John from Beyond ARTV. It's time for my weekly countdown series, 7 on Sunday. It's hard to believe how many episodes there's already been of this show in 2018 alone. It's crazy. Thank you guys for tuning in and showing it love each and every week. Today we're going to be taking a look at 7 albums that I actually changed my mind on. Now, I had people already asking when I teased this video over on Twitter if it was just going to be like positive changes or just going to be negative changes, or if it was going to highlight some of both, and I'll let you know right now that it is going to be a little bit of both. You're going to see albums that I no longer enjoy as much, and then there's going to be albums that I initially kind of disliked or had a disdain for, and then came to either really like or else in some cases love. I think this will be an interesting topic, and I do hope that you guys enjoy the video. Let me know if you're surprised by any of these picks down below. Drop a like on the video, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel.
In Miami trying to study by the pool. Couple things do, but you always get it done. Might have been a time where I loved her too, but you take that away and you always been the one. I wonder why the moon looks nice, girl. Maybe it's just right for the night. You seen it coming on too strong, girl. They want you in their life as a wife.
Hey Drake, I got my eyes on you and your 2011 record, Take Care. This is an album that I heard for the first time actually while I was on vacation in Washington, D.C. And I don't know if it was the fact that I was in a bad mood then, or maybe I just wasn't that into rap. I mean, I was definitely into some, but I would say that I was kind of into garbage rap for whatever reason at the time. And not to say that Drake is the best rapper ever, especially in recent times. You guys know that I've had my problems with him. But Take Care is actually an immaculate experience that spans 18 tracks and might feel a little bit bloated in places, but honestly does flesh itself out and make itself known for why it runs that long. The Toronto rapper found the perfect balance between flexing and also giving a more intimate view of his lifestyle on this album. And he hadn't yet worn out his welcome. He still felt like he was young, hungry, having a reason to be rapping and singing about the things that he was, and he wasn't just running circles like I feel he is at this point. He's running his victory lap about 6 times over now. And on this album, I initially felt it to be too long, and I didn't feel like Drake was all that interesting, but the more I came back to this album, or even specific songs from it, such as Underground Kings, which is a fantastic deep cut, I just started to realize that Drake had a certain feeling that he really had lingering with the listeners over the years. There's a reason why people cycle back to this album, and now there's a reason why it's gripping me.
So when you lose your mind, you'll find it at the bottom of the mess that's your life. Go take your own advice.
I don't have a ton to say about my number 6 choice, but unfortunately this was a negative decline. Now, if you've been a longtime fan of my main channel ARTV, you might remember that I initially gave Colt by Bayside, my number 6 choice, a 5 out of 5, a very coveted rating, especially for a new album. And honestly, I feel like in hindsight, I was way too quick to pull the trigger there, so to speak. This is something that I was just loving in the moment, but I didn't listen to enough times to fully know if I felt that way. I just think that I was excited coming out of a slow start to the year. This was 2014, and while I do love many of the songs on this record, everything from Pigsty to the opening moment, Big Cheese, it's a solid album. There's great lyrical content, but I think some of the things that brought it down for me was just how I think Anthony Ranieri, the lead singer, sounds a little bit too samey on some of the cuts, and honestly, the instrumentals aren't always that invigorating. So unfortunately, I fell off with this album, and I really haven't revisited all that much. It's something where I don't know if I feel shame or something, and maybe I just haven't had the time and that's the real excuse, but I just haven't come back to this album really much at all. So I had a falling out, and nothing against Bayside whatsoever. This is just one of those albums that was further lost on me with time.
And every night and day you take the stage, and it always entertains you, giving pleasure. And it's admirable, you tell yourself, and so you gladly sell yourself to others.
I sat here for a minute trying to think of a clever joke that's been done a million times about how Gautier is now somebody that we used to know, but I'm not gonna do that. You guys are better than that. You deserve higher quality content. Gautier, aka Wally de Bakker, is an Australian artist that dominated 2011 overseas, but crossed over into the US and really everywhere in 2012 with his hit song Somebody That I Used to Know. Obviously, I loved that song from the get-go, but I checked out the album and I was a bit befuddled as to what I was hearing. So many weird songs, especially some of the ones that were deeply vocoded and just had pitch-shifted vocals like on State of the Art. It's a weird experience, and an album that goes from feeling upbeat to feeling very gloomy and having a lot of statements that he wanted to make. And at first, I was so let down. I heard this epic record, Somebody That I Used to Know, and I was amped up because him and Kimbra just brought this emotion, this tension, and then the rest of the album was kind of a spectacle to behold in some ways, but it felt like I was watching something fall from the sky and I didn't exactly know what it was. It's like, is that a shooting star, or should I be concerned about alien invasion? Fortunately, I began to do a bit of a 180 when it came to my feelings on Making Mirrors, and while I don't feel this is the perfect album at all, it's still something that I truly respect and really got into. In fact, I'm glad I didn't review it right away. I waited a little while, and I wouldn't recommend watching my review of that album. I think it came out in 2012, and I'm pretty sure I was wearing a tank top in it. I don't know why I decided to sit down and film a video like that, but just know that this album grew on me big time. Gaining a spot at number 4 on the list is Treats, a noise pop album by Sleigh Bells, a duo, and this album came out in 2010. I was first introduced to this record in 2011, and here's a little rundown, kind of a reimagining of how the initial scenario when I was introduced to the record went down.
Hey John, wanna listen to some new music? I got this new Sleigh Bells album and it totally slays, man. It's weird.
Sure dude, let's give it a spin. Pop it in the CD player.
Good choice, man. Your mind is gonna be blown.
Look, I was spooked, okay? I had never listened to noise pop before. This was 2010. This was uncultured swine John. I'm sorry, but that's just the way that things went. And while some people will still be like, this album is garbage, I completely disagree with you because there's so many songs on here that are nonsense in the best way. They weren't trying to be a profound lyrical statement or anything like that. In fact, Alexis Krauss, the vocalist, often just mumbled things that came to her over Derek Miller's lush guitars. The hard-hitting ones, the ones that spiraled out of control, and the ones that repeated themselves while stabbing noisy melodies into your head. But at first, the interjections that they were putting there, they just weren't working for me. I was missing signals or something. But finally, sometime in I think 2011, something went off in my head and I just saw the light. And after that, I kept listening to this album over and over and over again. So much so that my apartment neighbors at the time must have hated me because the rattling bass and the loud guitars here thrashed about wildly through the late hours of the night in my young years.
Do not understand what it is. I don't know.
I am so glad that I am no longer one of those people that has to say, oh, I just don't get it with Radiohead. I don't understand them. No hate to anybody that still feels that way. I just personally got to a point or a level or something in my life where something clicked, and that for me was a moon-shaped pool. But the album that I'm talking about today is In Rainbows. This released in 2008, and it was one of the first full album experiences that I ever had with Radiohead. I can't remember exactly when I heard it. I had a friend play it for me and wanted my thoughts and feedback on it, and to me, it just sounded like ambient noise and art rock that was trying to be so smart and so intelligent, and I just wasn't feeling it because at the time I was wanting loud guitars and I was wanting menacing tones to the songs and catchy stuff and nothing else. And I guess there's nothing wrong with liking those things. In fact, I still like many of those qualities in music, but there's also something about appreciating the depth of Radiohead music and also Thom Yorke as a writer, a vocalist, perhaps Johnny Greenwood's guitars, and everything that the band is able to accomplish in general. And In Rainbows is something that is literally like turning on a light switch when you get it. Maybe that's Radiohead in general, but this album is truly turning into one of my favorites. This is an amazing album along with Disc 2 that I'm not totally going to spoil my thoughts on because I will do a review in one video where I talk about both Album 1 and Disc 2, but for now, I'll leave it at this. This album is amazing. The first time that I truly got Body Snatchers, my mind was just erupting like a volcano. It was just like sparks flying everywhere. What a tune. Everything from that, Jigsaw falling into place, All I Need, Nude. There's so many amazing songs here. And I beg of you, if you haven't gotten into Radiohead yet, make today the day that you do that. You guys know I've pretty much been ride or die for Muse, but this is another album that I've negatively changed my mind on. Oh no, cue the hate comments now! Liking this album for what it is, I get. I understand that there's enjoyable tracks here, like Mercy for example definitely shines, but at this point for me it sounds so similar to Starlight and other hits by Muse that it really doesn't do much for me. In fact, this album is very weak. It's something that feels like it could just be tapped and it would topple over in places. Not saying that there aren't great songs on here, because you guys know that I love Reapers, The Handler so much, and there's other cuts that I occasionally come back to, but I just feel like there's a lot of filler material here. Psycho isn't exactly something that does much for me, especially with that Drill Sergeant intro, but thankfully that's just an intro that you could skip over. And then you've got super long songs like The Globalist that just feel like they're trying to show off for the fact that they've got a long song, but they really don't have much to back it up. I love Muse. You guys probably know that I absolutely adore this band for the most part, but I do think that the album Drones that released in 2015 was kind of a mistake. It definitely returned to their sound that they had found, I guess, earlier in their career in some ways, but it just felt like it tried to have a cocky rock swagger to it, but they didn't really exactly want to be there. I do feel like Dead Inside was a great single, still holds up, maybe does feel a little bit similar to their other material, but overall, I just have mixed feelings on this album. I do not hate it by any means. I do not love this album though, and I definitely don't agree with my initial 4.5 rating.
I feel it in my bones. I'm stronger now. I'm ready for the high. Such a modest move. I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone.
Jeff, if you're out there, the playlist manager who did the every ARTV review ever, an OG viewer, this one is for you. At number 1 on this list on SOS today of 7 albums that I changed my mind on, I have Modern Vampires of the City by none other than Vampire Weekend. This is an album that I reviewed in 2013, and I definitely didn't exactly give it a positive score. There were songs on there that I had praise for, but for whatever reason, I just kind of scolded the band for not doing something more interesting without really digging into the album and doing the proper research. So a slap on the wrist for me and a down, bad boy for John in 2013. As silly as that may seem, I kind of needed the scolding. Not that I just got that now, I kind of did it to myself over the past 2 years. But this album is mesmerizing, man. I tell you, this thing has charm, it's got wit, it's got melody, and it's got the songs to back it up. Finally, here in 2018, new Vampire Weekend is actually happening, and I could not be more stoked for that, especially with the fact that Rostam is still involved. This album, Modern Vampires of the City, was thought to be his last, but apparently he's only quit as a touring member. He's producing for pop artists, for alternative artists, lots of people writing with them, and doing his own project as well. I can't say that I'm super interested in that, but I'm definitely interested and invested in Vampire Weekend at this point. Now, this album slowly crept up on me, and I initially kind of felt guilty for my review. I saw a lot of the comments, and it wasn't just your typical mean comments like, oh, fuck you, you're wrong. It was trying to educate me on what I missed and my perception being off on the record. And honestly, I have to go down and say my bad on that one, because you're right, I was wrong. I'll eventually do a full redemption review for this album someday, but for now, just know that I love so many of the cuts here, from Ya Hey to the already always fantastic Diane Young. Step is absolutely brilliant, and then you've got Hannah Hunt, one of my favorite songs of all time. The inspirations and the influences here, from folk music to gospel tinges to outside sampling. This album had some crazy ideas, but they pulled it off so well over the course of 12 songs, and I can boldly say now that I love this album. That's it for this episode of 7 on Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please drop a like on this video and let me know, what do you think of the episode? Did any of these just shock you being on here, whether my opinions changed more towards the negative side or the positive side? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new here, and if you're able to, support on Patreon at the top link down below to help videos like this keep coming on both of my channels. There's a direct link to my Patreon page at this annotation in the corner of the screen. Consider tapping there to help support. You can see last week's episode of SOS by tapping right over here, or see another recent video I made on the channel right over here. All of my social media accounts, including my Twitch, are linked in the description down below. And other than that, I'll see you very soon for more right here on Beyond ARTV.